So Gareth Williams is going to introduce you to the Newspaper Club. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you. You really do not want to hear any more about lexicography, believe me. Right, print's not dead. We've started saying that, I think, in 2010. It's still not dead. And when I look at that slide, I actually wonder whether it's just come back from a massive weekend in Ibiza. It's obviously pretty crazy stuff there. Today, I'm going to talk about how brands are returning to newsprint in the digital age. Before I introduce myself, let me introduce to our mascot. He's our paper boy. He's called Russell. Get it? No? Paper boy Russell? No. Tough crowd here today. Okay. As John said, I'm Gareth Williams. I'm a director of Newspaper Club. I used to be CEO. I'm a partner in a brand editorial marketing agency called ThinkPiece. And if you're into the Twitters, that's my handle. A bit of a strange one, but there are a lot of Gareth Williams in the world, as the Welsh people here will be aware. Any Welsh people in here today? Hooray, well done. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk for about 20, 25 minutes. I think we're going to do some questions at the end of my session. I'm going to tell you a bit about the story behind Newspaper Club. It's important to understand that in order to get some context for the case studies we're going to talk about. There are 4 of those. Then we're going to wrap them up with some sort of summary insights and then look to what that means for sort of the marketing industry more generally. So, Newspaper Club. It was founded in 2009 by 3 individuals who were located around the Old Street area, subsequently to become known as Silicon Roundabout. Russell Davis, Ben Terrett, Tom Taylor. And they were all very sort of into the digital world and began wondering, well, does it make sense for everyone to head down this digital path? What about these assets that are purportedly being left behind? These sort of legacy assets. Aren't there interesting things that we could do with them by innovating digitally? A chance comment from someone, printing newspapers is cheaper than you think, which is true. Made them think, well, actually, these big printing presses, everyone's saying the business model for these presses or associated with these presses is broken. Is there any way we could innovate in such a way to make them useful in perhaps new ways? And that sort of idea, that question, turned into something of an obsession. They set out to make newspaper printers just another web-accessible resource and therefore introduce them to potentially new users. This was their first effort. It's really just a selection of blog posts by popular bloggers that was produced as a Christmas present. They printed 1,000 and they went within a couple of days, I think, and ended up printing more and more. There was obviously a lot of interest in reading digital content offline, just a sort of different experience. They did an awful lot of work in linking the web to digital and lithographic newspaper printers. There's lots of clever coding going on which helps smooth the way between someone's browser and the printer itself. There's a very important bit of software within the Newspaper Club offer, which is layout software, which is accessible via the website. And what that does, it automatically reformats digital content, including photographs, to sit in a newspaper-style format, so it turns it into columns, effectively. That sounds quite easy, but it's actually really, really difficult in terms of a sort of coding job. And at the end of that, what they'd ended up with is really a service that effectively allowed anyone and everyone to become their own press baron. You could sit at your kitchen table or your desk at work, and through that browser, you could do everything that was required without any design training to produce a newspaper, from one copy to literally millions of copies that could be delivered within a couple of days anywhere in the world. That is quite exciting as a sort of proposition, but newspapers, newsprint, why bother, right? The world was very, very fixated on the digital. And I think, increasingly people are realizing that the amazing attributes of newsprint haven't really been appreciated. It's evolved over centuries. It's this technology that has been continuously refined over hundreds of years to be what we have today. It's something not to be discarded lightly. It's evolved to be cheap. The newspaper, the paperweight is just robust enough to, wrap your chips in, hit people around the head, without being sort of too heavy to be to add sort of superfluous cost. It's incredibly readable and accessible. Millions of people read newspapers every day. Lots of people read newspapers, and that will be the only thing that they read. Perhaps a book on the summer holiday, but apart from that, that's quite an achievement. That's quite a lot of investment that a lot of people are making in it as a medium. It's authoritative, for better or worse. We see all the time the influence that newspapers have, and some of that influence sort of inheres, if you like, in the medium. If you set something out in a newspaper-style way, it automatically acquires some sort of authority just because of that heritage. It's durable, and it doesn't need batteries. And there are obviously lots of instances in one's life where a screen and batteries just don't work. And newsprint is great at filling in those gaps, really. One obvious criticism, which we got a lot early on, really, and it's actually what my mum said as well. I mean, I think it's often the first response people have to this as a proposition. But you can't update it. It's a terrible way to deliver news. It is. It's an absolutely terrible way to deliver news. I have to caveat that now, though, in that the weekly news magazines are actually thriving. Newsprint is actually quite a good way to look back on the news, if not to deliver it. But digitally inspired newsprint is really not for delivering news. It's for pretty much printing anything that you might want it printed. We have to lose the preconceptions of what a newspaper does and open our minds up to it basically as a printed medium that can carry any message that you want. It's generally an offline medium in a multi-channel world. So we would say, if you're thinking of printing, consider making a newspaper. And you're thinking of new ways to engage customers, consider making a newspaper. So free your mind up of any preconceptions about it being a vehicle for the news. Right, we're going to look now at what 4 brands have done with newsprint. The first one is VINOTECA. VINOTECA is a chain of wine bars, and what they want to do is change the way people drink wine. The bars are welcoming, they're informal, they're inspired by the wine bars of Italy and Spain. This is an innovative business that is really trying to do everything it can to make wine accessible. They pioneered premium wine in a box. One of their challenges is to make a 285 bottle wine list more accessible. That's quite a heavy sort of bit of information there that takes a lot of, you've got to take real care about making that accessible to a more mainstream wine drinker. What they decided to do is turn the wine list into what we call a traditional mini, which is a lithographically printed pamphlet, effectively, which they update twice yearly. This is some shots of it. As you can see, it's a very elegant design, really nicely put together, a really good size. Colour palette, I think, is really great in terms of sort of echoing the product. This is what they have to say about it. I love this quote from Patrick Ely, who's the creative director of the agency they used. "Wine lists often feel quite intimidating, dusty, leather-bound reprimand from a cheerless aunt." And I think we've all sort of had to sort of labour to carry those big bound leather volumes in the odd posh restaurant. This really nice light pamphlet that is just so easy to handle and to read. It's welcoming, it's easy to digestible, which is exactly what they want to do with their product. It decomplicates quite a sort of specialist world. Some of the quotes that the owners had: "We're so excited about the new wines on our list that we are literally about to cry. The wines that our staff just can't stop drinking." I think we've all been there as staff, even though they probably should. Those sort of quotes, they're able to sort of put that liveliness right in the wine list, bringing it to life, humanizing it, really communicating what the business is all about, the enthusiasm that's in the brand. This is the wine list open. As you can see, a really nice spare design, very, very easy to read, combined with again, that lovely photography. Just to sort of summarize this case study, they made this mini newspaper because it's simple and immediate. You could put it in your bag and take it home at the end of the night. So they're really expanding the function here. This isn't just a reference point. This has actually got lots of editorial in it. It's the sort of thing that you want to read. It's engaging, not just unpretentious. Like I say, they've wrapped up editorial with insightful, helpful listings. They can change things seasonally because it's cheap to print. And it doubles as a price list for the in-store shops. So this carrying a huge number of functions there really efficiently in something that, with total conviction, conveys what the brand and the business is all about. And there's no leather in sight. Second case study is Selfridges. Selfridges have a very successful and exciting program called Bright Young Things, which is new designers that they give a showcase to. They decided to give some bright old things a showcase, and I'm getting to the age now where I sort of really fully support that sort of effort. The message was creativity is ageless, and newsprint as something of an ageless medium, is a great way to do that. They've printed a traditional tabloid, so that's a lithographically printed tabloid, and it's full of brilliant portraits and interviews. And what this did, it brought the content that was living on the web into the store, and again, it allowed customers to take it home. Quite a retro sort of look to it, really nice colours, but still very much of today. Bright old things. This is what Selfridges themselves had to say about this. It's a store-wide scheme, and what it did really, the main site for this promotion in store was in the windows. And what the newspaper allowed them to do is not just bring stuff in from the web into the store, but brought the experience from the windows into the store. So it sort of integrated things. It provided a way to tie all these things up. They really didn't stint in terms of the production values. Renowned photographer, author, and illustrator Todd Selby was used, and it's a great read, really entertaining. You can still see it on the web, actually, if anyone's interested. Some good interviewees. It's another shot. Very sort of weekend supplement, feature-y approach here. Nice photography, nice editorial. Now, the third case study is a bit different again. It's my favorite because I just love the name Chimpington Post. Say it as much as I can, really, Chimpington Post. This is MAILCHIMP'S publication to advertise them as an employer to potential recruits. It's distributed by the company's recruiters at careers fairs. They're now working on their third edition, and it embodies the company's spirit of fun. It's playful, irreverent, colourful, smart, and it really did stand out amongst the glossy stock photo pamphlets that are all too ubiquitous in that sort of event. I think we've all seen them and been a bit deadened by them. That's the front cover. See, people have been talking about email being dead as well, something John didn't mention earlier, but email's been on its last feet, purportedly. But as we all know, anyone who's got an interest in CRM knows that email is still one of the very best media out there to maintain a customer relationship. I really like the colour palette. It's sort of 80s synth band album cover. This is what MailChimp say about it. We're not only incredibly proud of what we do, but we also have a lot of fun doing it. And it was important to communicate that to students. No glossy, uninspired pamphlets would come from us. It always had a functional purpose. It wasn't just about bringing the business to life for potential recruits. Our recruiters talk as much as they can about MailChimp in the few precious minutes they have with students. The rest is up to the Chimpington Post, confident that whatever they couldn't fit into the conversation, we've got covered. It's a busy, crowded environment. There's snatches of conversation, very rapid engagement. It's really reassuring in that environment to have a hard copy to hand out that's really going to mark you out as being different. And let's not forget, this is an incredibly competitive marketplace. these guys are trying to hire versus people like Facebook, people like Google. The top engineers, the top coders, they really need to be marketed to, and that's why they invested so much in this Chimpington post. This, I think, is the second edition that they did. Again, a slight change to the color palette. You can see there's lots of really interesting content in there, stuff to entertain people. They're making something of a gift here. Crosswords, a bit on sports. On the right there, you can see something of a pastiche of traditional newspaper ads. They're actually really, really funny. Right, the last case study we're going to talk about is SUSHI. Now, SUSHI, they printed their new menu as a traditional mini, so it's a lithographically published pamphlet-size newspaper. It's entitled This is Tokyo, A True Taste of Modern Tokyo. The restaurant market, as we know, is really competitive, new concepts coming all the time. Quite a lot of these new concepts are Asian, some of them are actually Japanese. So, SUSHI has got this fantastic heritage. It really sort of blazed the trail for this sort of offer in the restaurant market. And they were really keen for people to understand how their heritage and how sort of closely linked they were to the exciting stuff that's going on in Tokyo today. The menu was inspired by manga comic books with illustrations of dishes and food, and it featured lots of kanji script. It's obviously functional in that it's a menu. So you order using the menu at the front, and then behind that you've got really interesting articles which you can read whilst you're waiting for your food, or you can take home again. So again, it's something that the customer can, it might want to take back with them. The content's updated 4 or 5 times a year. Again, that's the cheapness of newspaper printing coming out. This is 4 different versions. As you can see, quite colourful, a really nice, striking manga look to the cover. The icons here, they reflect if you've been in SUSHI, you'll know they charge by plate colour. It also, to some extent, reflects the digital icons. This is what Amy Emerson of SUSHI's agency said. We wanted to give everyone a taste of what's going on in Tokyo right now. That's where the zine newspaper menu idea came from. It gave us the chance to show some nice snippets of art, fashion, and music alongside their food. I think that's really interesting in that they're using that association to really, really build the brand, so that people, when they think of SUSHI, they think, yeah, this is an exciting brand that's associated with all these really exciting things happening in Tokyo. But at the same time, it's standalone interesting. I mean, if I found that in a restaurant, yeah, I'd really be interested to read it. Forget SUSHI for 1 minute. This is a really nice standalone bit of content. I think most people in this room would be intrigued to find out, what exciting things are happening in Tokyo today. A spin-off benefit here is that, as we all know, people love taking photos of their tea and putting it up on the social media. And these are all taken from Instagram, Twitter. So you're basically giving people something of a sort of branded background, if you like, for their social media shots of what they're eating. They're 4 case studies from the last year. We've got quite a few more on the website. These are some of the brands we've worked with. I think the fact that people like Facebook, TED, people like that are investing in newspapers and using newspapers for their communications is testament to the fact that this is a medium that really has been revived and really has got an interesting set of pathways in the future. By the way, in the course of doing this, we've also done loads and loads of stuff for individuals. We're not just a B2B business, we're a B2C business. People who want to celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, people who want to do portfolios, art projects, pretty much anything you can imagine being printed. Posters we've printed, and we've actually printed over 12 million newspapers to date. So what's the wrap here? What can we sort of get from those case studies? Well, the multi-channel customer journey needs multi-channel signposts. I think we forget that sometimes. What each of those brands have done is they've really, really thought hard about their customer journey. They've really thought hard about what the touch points are there. And they haven't really sort of come at it from any one technological or media perspective. They've just thought, how are our customers behaving? What do they need functionally? And how can we turn those functions into marketing opportunities? Each of them have done that in a way. You know, SUSHI with the menu, VINOTECA with the wine list, SELFRIDGES with the newspaper that brings the shop window and the digital into store, into the customer's hands, and MAILCHIMP, you know, in that very crowded, busy environment of the careers fair. So they've all really thought about the customer journey and how they can intervene in that to really add value to the customer. I think something else that emerges from these case studies is the brand as the publisher. I think this is something that we're going to increasingly see, not just offline through things like newspapers, but also online. It's a very crowded market out there. It costs quite a lot of money to get things out there. Customers are more sophisticated than ever. You know, your marketing messages are quite easily seen through, particularly when, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, I mean they're literally seen through in the sense that your customers are using social media and talking about you all the time. Reviews are everywhere. No matter what you're saying, people are actually seeing you outside your advertising. And I think the brand as the publisher, instead of thinking of advertising as being something at one remove from you, it actually means that you have the opportunity to bring customers into what you're doing, to open up what you're doing, to make it very visible. And that, I think, is quite an exciting development. And I think it's something that we're really only at the beginning of. I think there's a lot more to come here, online as well as offline, as I say. So looking ahead, with respect to what I've just been talking about, I've sort of taken the liberty of coining a name for it. I mean, you hear content marketing all the time nowadays, and once you look into it, you realise that content marketing covers just such a huge variety of different things that it's got very little sort of intrinsic meaning. I call brands acting as their own publisher, online and offline, as brand editorial marketing. So it's brands talking about themselves. And I think another lesson that we get from those case studies is that it's actually not sufficient just to talk about yourself. You actually have to give something to the customer. What you do has to have a standalone quality as a bit of content. It's got to be as good as anything they're going to read in a newspaper. I'm sure that also has some sort of benefits with respect to reciprocity. You know, if you give something to a customer and they enjoy it, they automatically feel that they want to give something back to you. I mean, I'm certainly wouldn't claim any particular insight into that, but Rory Sutherland, who's talking later, is the person to ask about that sort of behavioural economics. It's got more potential, as I said, and it's cheaper than ever. Newsprint is cheap. Digital is obviously very cheap. Zero marginal cost. But it's not easy. I think almost every brand, other than the really huge ones, need help in creating this content, need help in putting things together. The agencies are needed that understand and link up brand and marketing strategy, because that's where it all starts. It's about the very highest point of strategy here, because you're talking about who your customers are, what your offer is, how you want to explain it to them. It's about SEO with respect to online content, if you're going to publish online. And of course, it involves design, writing, and photography, online and offline. As I say, very few brands, if any, other than the very biggest, are able to do all that in-house. So I think there's an opportunity here for agencies that can tie all that together and help this mission of brand editorial marketing. If you want to see more examples, as I said earlier, of case studies, you can go to our blog. That's the URL up there. That's our website. That's my agency's website, ThinkPiece. Thank you very much. I think we've got time for a few questions, but thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gareth. Yeah, Gareth actually can't stay for the Q&A later, so if anybody's got any particular questions, we've got some roving mics around. I've got one here if anybody needs it. Any questions for Gareth?
One here.
One here, right.
When it comes to the format...
Do you want to use one?
I don't think I need one. When it comes to the format, What is the most popular size that you found when the agencies are buying them? Is it broadsheet? Is it
It's tabloid.
tabloid? Thank
Tabloid, yeah. I should just point out that we probably do more orders in terms of number digitally, but the real volume comes from the traditional end of things.
Any more? Any more for any more? Everybody's desperate for a coffee break. Gareth, thank you very much. Brilliant.
Okay, it's my pleasure. I'm going to be around for about another, well, for the coffee break, so please grab me if you do want to talk. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.